On to our final speaker here this morning, Ash Bendelow from Brave is here to talk about alchemy and brands breaking bad. Please give him a warm welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, welcome. I'm Ash Bendelow, the Managing Director of Brave, and today I'd like to talk to you all about brands breaking bad. Firstly, what do I mean by brands breaking bad? Well, let me summarize a pitch of a television show that hopefully most of you have probably heard of. The story I want to share today isn't just the story of one man's transformation, but the story and the catalyst of the transformation of an industry. A story that pioneered and redefined television for the smart generation that has had so many positive repercussions that it should inspire each and every one of us. The pitch, rather morbidly, goes like this. Chemistry teacher, dying of cancer, turns to cooking meth to financially provide for his pregnant wife and disabled son post-death. Now, on the face of it, it's not the most attractive proposition for any commissioning editor or television executive. And that's why the concept was rejected by no less than 4 of the big US television networks, including Showtime, FX, TNT, and perhaps most surprisingly, HBO. This concept, of course, led to what we now know to be one of the most innovative, notorious, and groundbreaking television shows ever made, Breaking Bad. The story follows the transformation of one Walter White, mild-mannered chemistry teacher living in the burbs of Albuquerque. He can barely make ends meet on his meager salary. And that situation is not likely to improve once his wife gives birth and while his son battles with cerebral palsy. But it does get worse for Walter when he's struck down by the news that he's got cancer. So realizing that illness will probably ruin his family financially, Walter makes a desperate bid to earn as much money as he possibly can by converting an old RV into a mobile meth lab. So, with random violence, overdoses, mutilated bodies, summary executions, acid baths, and characters that are left with only half a face, you take Mr. Chips and you turn him into Scarface, was Breaking Bad creator Vince Gilligan's summation. AMC, the network that finally commissioned Breaking Bad, was said to only have taken a risk on the show as they were cash rich after Mad Men. The success of hard-drinking, hard-smoking, misogynistic Madison Avenue ad execs allowed the network to take a risk on an idea that many thought was doomed for failure. Breaking Bad premiered in the US on January the 20th, 2008. AMC, as a network, reaches over 94 million homes in the US. However, that first episode attracted a paltry 994,000 viewers. And that was despite aggressive promotion off the back of Mad Men, which was already a hit for the network. By the time Breaking Bad had reached its finale, 10.4 million evangelical viewers tuned in to see Walter's demise. The final episode became the 3rd highest watched show in US cable history, only being beaten by the final episode of The Sopranos and the conclusion of Sex in the City. Let me just explain how crazy that actually is. For a program that had almost been cancelled after 2 seasons, and the 4th season finale, the penultimate season, delivered just 1.9 million viewers for the network. The show had only ever broken through the 2 million barrier, just twice in its history. But just 2 years later, and 16 episodes later, as the final season was divided into 2, the show had taken off by an astounding 500%. Nothing in television had seen that quantum leap ever before, and it cemented its status as the game changer for the underdog in TV shows. This seminar on brands breaking bad is inspired by brands that take risks in their creative and their commercial decision-making, and those that don't. Risks that Breaking Bad as a series took. Of course, the transformation in viewing habits was primarily led by the audience's exposure to Breaking Bad via Netflix. And Gilligan even publicly thanked Netflix at the Golden Globes to contribute to the overall success of the show. The way people accessed the program put Netflix on the global map and changed viewing norms. In territories where fans couldn't access the show through traditional methods, such as terrestrial, cable, satellite, the online streaming service provided a way of not just watching the show, but being able to access the full back catalogue and catch up. Breaking Bad as a show was breaking barriers, changing behaviours, and redefining the TV model, potentially forever. As guardians of brands, I would say we all need to get a little more Breaking Bad. Rewriting rules, reimagining rules, challenging rules, transforming the way we work. If we take the Standard & Poor's 500 index, that we see that the life expectancies to companies to remain on that index has dramatically fallen over the last 75, 80 years. From 75 years to just 5 years. Constant innovation isn't a strategic option anymore. It's an absolute mandate. And this is where so many parallels can be drawn between what we see with brands and businesses and what we understood with the intricate premise, plots, and subplots that we experienced within Breaking Bad. Chemistry is the study of growth, decay, and transformation. So many businesses and brands also follow that cycle. Companies do great jobs innovating, creating value, becoming trailblazers, and looking to monopolize a particular category or market. Then the quality becomes less important, becomes less of an issue. The company places greater importance and greater value on the accountant or the salesperson to shift that needle, to create the value. And then the company's DNA moves from the product engineers at the center of its universe to devaluing and demotivating these creators. The business loses clarity of focus on making great products that consumers want. Desperation is often an agent of change and a change of attitudes towards risk. Too often, it's only when a company has accepted that it's unlikely to survive in its current guise, and it eventually acknowledges that transformation is needed. Complacency stops, inconvenient truths are addressed and realized, and more often than not, we see companies regressing back to the state that made them a success in the first instance. And ironically, if it's not too late by that point, it makes that company more progressive again. Excuse me. People that understand the product should always be the ones that run the company, motivated to create game-changing products, making money and corporate survival, now depend not merely on satisfying customers, but by delighting them. To continue to prosper, firms must have creators who are continuously innovating and working to deliver a steady supply of value. The new bottom line of business becomes, is the customer delighted? And it is a fundamental shift from outputs to outcomes. It is more difficult to add value than it is to cut costs. And that is why the tyranny of short-term gains is always at odds with the motivations of the creators within business. The businesses that win are the ones that have that steadfast belief in constantly finding new ways to delight their customers and consumers. Now, to take kind of those three things and apply it to the brand and business world a bit more, we see Ford. Now, you may see Ford as one of the world's largest and arguably most successful car manufacturers, but it's probably had its most turbulent time over the last 15 to 20 years. When Alan Mulally was named president and CEO of the car marque in September 2006, he inherited a company that was a benchmark for an uninventive product. He took his skills from his prior employer, Boeing, where he was the one that introduced the first all-digital flight deck on a commercial airliner, and set about breaking bad, transforming the company on the way. Mulally used his entire 8 years in charge to reverse a calamitous $12.7 billion loss into a profit. Mulally introduced what would become a template for transforming ailing companies, the Way Forward program. Mullally's cost-cutting initiative may have been controversial, but it supercharged Ford, leading to the first profitable quarter in just 2 years. As he moved to stabilize the company, he also took a $23 billion loan, restructured operations, sold off Jaguar, Land Rover, Volvo, and Aston Martin, and launched the unheard of One Ford program that looked to re-engage demotivated and disappointed employees. Mulally said that it was never going to be easy, and the bold steps that he took weren't going to be painful. And Ford shed more than 50,000 jobs and had closed 17 plants since 2005. But like Walter White, he knew he had to make the best out of what was a terminal diagnosis. Ford is one of the only US car manufacturers not to have been bailed out by the US government, unlike General Motors and unlike Chrysler. And our Breaking Bad anti-hero, White, he refused to roll over and just die. However, the biggest and perhaps boldest, bravest decision undoubtedly lies with then the outgoing CEO Mulally and the incoming one, Mark Shields, to completely reimagine a product that had been Ford's crown jewels, profit machine, and cash cow for over 50 years, despite that product only ever being sold in North America, the F-150. The combination of simple construction, minimal changes, and long production runs created the industry's fattest profits on any one vehicle. If the F-150 was a company in its own right, it would make it into the Fortune 100. But could it last? And the bold decision was taken in 2009 to gamble away from steel to a new lightweight aluminium body. This slashed the weight of the vehicle by 1/3 of a ton and made groundbreaking innovations into improvements in fuel economy and handling. The change affected each and every area of the production process, a production process that was so profitable and so streamlined, from supply, build, and repair of the new aluminium body. No other brand had made that jump from steel to aluminium. It had been made by Land Rover and Audi in prestige vehicles, but not in this category. And we don't know if this was the right call yet. The results of that program and that project comes to market this quarter, following kind of a 6-year development cycle. And brands breaking bad in the car world can go even further. Electric car manufacturer Tesla went open source earlier this year with its founder, Elon Musk, opening up the company's patent files in what it called good faith use from outside companies. For a car manufacturer to open up its secrets had been unheard of in such a competitive automotive market. But Tesla decided to do it, to break bad, and look at the bigger picture of technological advancement, along with its vision for changing the look of automotive utopia. With billion-dollar investments with partners like Panasonic to create and build the largest battery factory in the US to realize its eco-friendly dream. In fact, Musk is a classic example of a boss that has decided to follow the Breaking Bad path, ignoring the naysayers to achieve a specific goal. In November, just recently, he announced a delay to the much-anticipated Tesla Model X. And the reason for the delay? He wasn't 100% convinced by the product as it stood. He wanted more time to test, to refine, to make it the best product it could ever be. And I think, it's a point of self-reflection on how many of us have made quite a critical call on not presenting any form of our work when we're not 100% convinced that it is going to work. Small challenger businesses should also make use of kind of the Breaking Bad blueprint, as well as kind of the big guys, the corporate giants. If Walter and Jesse were to make the narcotic equivalent of homebrew, then they would be Brewdog. The business startup was founded in Scotland in 2007 by James Watt and Martin Dickey as a craft brewer. It produces bottled and canned beers of ale, stout, IPA, and lager. Breaking the brewing mold has always been part of the company culture and the Brewdog mantra. In 2009, Brewdog launched a beer called the Tactical Nuclear Penguin, a 32% proof beer, which was at the time claimed to be the strongest beer in the world. However, just a year later, they surpassed their own achievement by brewing something called Sink the Bismarck, which was 41% proof. But it's the brewers' disruption tactics that have really taken it into the role of challenging norms and breaking new ground in this category. In 2014, the brewer achieved maximum publicity and maximum notoriety, taking on the drinks regulator, the Portman Group in the UK, over comments relating to its beer brand Speedball. The company had to apologize for not giving a shit about the pronouncements from the drinks watchdog, and another spat over its kind of pale ale, the Dead Pony Club, where the Portman Group had said that it had broken alcohol marketing rules that encouraged both antisocial behavior and rapid drinking. The regulator then instructed licensees and retailers to not order Dead Pony Club. In July of the previous year, it had gotten into trouble in disruption mode again, hitting out against the reprimands by the ASA, the Advertising Standards Authority, saying it will continue to display claims on its website deemed offensive by the regulator. The website stated, "Brewdog is a post-punk apocalyptic mofo of a craft brewery. Say goodbye to the corporate beer whores, crazy for power and world domination. Ride toward anarchy and caramel craziness. Let the sharp, bitter finish rip you straight to the tits. Save up for a luger and drill the bastards." Now, like them or loathe them, they are breaking bad in this category. They are doing what no one else is doing and winning. Or there are brands that, despite taking the corporate dollar, like to plow their own furrow such as the Mexican fast food chain Chipotle. In July 1993, a 28-year-old chef, Steve Ells, opened up an 850 square foot taqueria in Denver. The restaurant became so successful, it soon led to spin-offs, which led to further expansion, which then required a backer. In this case, McDonald's came running, and it initially took a minority stake in the business that then became a 90% stake in the business. Now, you may think that that would spell the end of the Chipotle chain and its values and its culture, as it was going to be swallowed up by the giant corporation that is McDonald's. But it wasn't such a messy divorce, but more of a conscious uncoupling, as Ells decided to shift Chipotle's purchasing practices in the direction of sustainability. The chain started buying all of its pork from Nimon Ranch farms and groups that produced only organic meat. They soon also began to seek out chicken and beef raised without hormones and antibiotics. Chipotle became the first major restaurant chain in the US to reveal which of its products contained GMO ingredients. So this cultural stance could have led to the final straw, and in 2006, McDonald's decided to get rid of its interests in Chipotle via an IPO. Ells, the founder, issued a share buyback policy, which in turn made the business completely independent once more. Chipotle had broken bad because it had stuck to its core values on quality of product, and values much like Walter White, even though his product was a little more dubious. It now has 1,600 locations globally and employs 45,000 people. So for McDonald's, perhaps this was the one that got away. To use a Seth MacFarlane quote, in an age where there seems to be journalistic merit, with BuzzFeed allowing me to understand which Disney princess I'm most like, Vice has come calling as the changing of the guard for how the news is and should be reported for the smart generation. Vice is the epitome of the libertarian agenda, and yet recently gained unparalleled access to the inner workings of the fledgling Islamic State. An achievement, I'm sure, that the guys at Al Jazeera and Sky News would have been left grinding their teeth at. Perhaps the success is due to the unconventional ambitions of Shane Smith, the CEO and the co-founder. In a recent interview with Forbes, he said, "I don't give a shit about money. I have more money than I could ever spend. All I'm keen on is creating a fucking cultural impact." A cultural impact that he is undeniably making with Vice. In just 20 years, Vice has gone from a Montreal youth mag to a multimedia empire, rumored to be in talks at the moment with AOL, Time Warner, who also owns CNN, on selling a $2.5 billion stake in the business to grow and expand the empire even further. And despite accusations of gonzo journalism and derision from the mainstream media, Vice has built this empire through finding and telling stories, seemingly without overt news agendas of the other news media agencies. And a great example is this human story of some Iraqi kids that were just trying to rehearse their Slipknot-style music while they were actually dodging Scud missiles in Iraq. The story appealed to the global youth that were disaffected with world news and politics. It engaged them, while making the traditional news agencies look ridiculous, stating that the conflict was already over from the safety of their Green Zone press camps. Smith maintains Vice tells the story of the people, not of the journalist. So, whether it be raising the creative bar, reimagining a product, or transforming a company, clients should be guided by their agencies to continue to take risks to break bad. We need our CMOs being a little more Walter White, using the marketing function to constantly delight customers and add value to products and services, and more importantly, fight for what's right for the future of the business by any means necessary. We need people putting their jobs on the line when they've got the conviction of believing in ideas and thoughts. We need to collectively lobby for change from a creative culture of mediocrity, a culture where creativity is only viewed in the confines of words and pictures. We need to make the rainmakers, the client rainmakers, the norm of the industry, rather than just the exception. We need to place greater value on creating greater value, rather than just managing processes. We also need to recognize that there is still institutional indoctrination of just don't fuck it up, rather than creating entrepreneurial cultures where you can ask and you can nurture, why can't it be 10 times better than 10% better? Motivational speaker Robert Schuller once said, "What would you do if you knew for sure you wouldn't fail?" And I put it to you all, taking risks and the fact that you may fail is the reason that you will succeed. Thank you for listening. I've been Ash Bendelow. But before I go, I just want to share one more interesting aside with you all today. If a brand could be on the verge of failure, and perhaps there is an opportunity to manufacture Class A drugs on the side, I'm sure everyone in this room knows that that is the chemical structure of cocaine. What if I told you that cocaine, or that Coca-Cola, remains the only corporation allowed to legally import coca leaves which are used to manufacture medical-grade cocaine in the United States today? Oh, excuse me. I got a bit clicker happy there. There we go. The coca leaves are imported into the States through a cocoa processing lab called the Stepan Company. Google it. As recently as 2011, it was estimated that there were 100 metric tons of coca leaves imported to the Stepan Company with ties to Coca-Cola as part of a special permission program from the US DEA. Cocaine is, of course, no longer in Coca-Cola at all. However, it turns out that the cocaine is sold to St. Louis company Mallinckrodt Incorporated. Google it. The official explanation that this is for medicinal use. Who are we to question that? But it looks like giant worldwide corporations may be closer to Breaking Bad than we originally think. Thanks very much.